Well, hey there. It's the Range Ronin with another chapter in the Range Ronin Chronicles. Welcome back if you are returning, and a hearty welcome if you are new to my channel. Today, I am pulling an old Armscor Rock Island Armory 1911 GI Standard out of the safe to review. Stay tuned, and I will tell you all about it. The 1911 needs no introduction, having been designed as early as 1908 by inventor John Moses Browning and accepted by the military in 1911. This pistol and its variants have been around for a very long time. While more modern interpretations of the 1911 exist, sometimes one just needs to go back to the beginning to appreciate what is being offered today. When I purchased this 1911, a reproduction of the 1911 by Armscor Rock Island Armory, a very long time ago, it was never shot, just simply placed in storage until I felt that it needed to see the light of day. I am happy to say that it felt it was time to show up, once again, in my hand. Before I get into the features, let me first run the specifications. As I mentioned, it has been a while since this 1911 has seen the light of day. As such, there is one distinct difference between this version and later versions, and that is with the slide markings. On the left side of the slide, Rock Island Armory and its logo is roll marked. With a later version, roll marking was eliminated and a silver-colored version appeared. This was later eliminated, and a simple logo appears at the rear of the slide. This is the version that we see at this time, and is, by the way, a nice but subtle complement to the pistol's appearance, as compared to a large billboard. Right side slide markings are non-existent, which makes for a nice smooth appearance of that old slab side slide. Now, let me get underway with the rest of the features. The front and rear sight are typical GI, small and difficult to see against a dark background. The front sight is a simple interruption in the slide's contour, while the rear sight is a simple notched sight. The front sight is fixed, while the rear sight can be adjusted for windage if moved within its dovetail anchor point. Let's face it, the original 1911 was a point-and-shoot interface that was intended for combat, and not sport shooting. Vertical rear serrations are present, as with the original 1911. As a side note, it does take some hand strength to manipulate the slide. No left side frame markings are present, while right side frame markings consist of the serial number and model. Note that the model is a 1911 A1 FS, whereas the FS in RIA speak, stands for full size. The A1 designation is, however, a slight misnomer, as the original 1911 A1 had an arched mainspring housing, which this unit does not. A small but significant oversight by RIA with their model designations. I will say that the grip safety extension does favor the A1 version, however, being somewhat of a longer extension than that of the 1911, or so it appears. The grip safety is of standard fare without any memory bump, as with newer 1911 variants. The mainspring housing is of the vertically serrated flat type, in keeping with the original 1911's heritage. When I purchased this 1911, the grips were of smooth wood. The grip panels were exchanged to a more traditional double diamond pattern that improves not only the look of the pistol, but also provides a better gripping surface. The grip frame houses an 8-round magazine that can be easily inserted due to a beveled magwell, something that the original 1911 did not have. This pistol does come with one 8-round magazine, but others may be used. Moving up to the hammer, you will see the standard 1911 spurred hammer that has adequate checkering, material, and a small hammer spur valley for manually cocking the hammer. Knowing how to properly decock a 1911-based pistol is essential to prevent injury or death to you or others, and to prevent damage to anything the barrel would be pointed at. This knowledge can carry over to pistols like the CZ, except for the BD series, and other hammer-fired pistols with no decocking mechanism. Some, I don't know why, prefer to carry a 1911 in condition 2, hammer down on a live cartridge. Most 1911 operators of today prefer to carry condition 1, cocked and locked. For those of us that own, shoot, and carry hammer-fired pistols, we occasionally find ourselves in a position where manual decocking is called for. Lowering a hammer over a live round poses obvious risk. Murphy's Law is always in effect, and the consequences of doing it wrong, well, that doesn't need explanation. Some people believe you should never manually decock a pistol with a loaded chamber. Decocking should only take place with an unloaded pistol. I agree with that. For the purpose of demonstrating how to safely decock a 1911, I'm going to use the Rock Island Armory Baby Rock 1911-based subcompact pistol that I recently reviewed. The procedure, however, applies to any 1911-based pistol, or, as mentioned, for pistols like the CZ, except for the BD series that has a decocker, and other hammer-fired pistols with no decocking mechanism. Before I begin, I'll perform a safety check of the Baby Rock to ensure that no live rounds are present in the pistol or in the immediate vicinity. Now that the pistol is safe to manipulate, let's move on to the procedure. Like with anything else, there's a right way and a wrong way to do things. I am going to go over the right way. You can safely decock a 1911 pistol in 4 easy steps. It's pretty simple, but requires that you perform these steps with great care, attention, and effort. If there's a key to doing this, it's doing it slowly. If you take your time, you should never have an issue. First of all, point the gun in a safe direction and finger outside of the trigger guard. This needs no explanation, but in case something goes wrong, well, you get the idea. And did I say not to put your finger on the trigger at this time? Pinch the hammer firmly between the forefinger and thumb of your non-shooting hand. Don't ride the hammer down with just your thumb. Use your free hand. The cowboy method of decocking a hammer, as with a single-action revolver, just does not work here. While holding the hammer, squeeze and hold the trigger. You want to be firmly pinching the hammer so that the hammer doesn't move as you initially squeeze the trigger. You will feel the hammer release when you press the trigger far enough for the sear to clear the cocking notch in the hammer. Finally, slowly ride the hammer down. Don't slow the hammer down, stop the hammer, and then ride it down until it comes to a rest. Well, there you have it, how to safely decock the 1911 pistol or any hammer-fired pistol without a decocking mechanism. The all-steel frame is, of course, standard fare for a full-size government model 1911. And being of standard fare, let's move to the left side of the frame and gander at the controls. The slide lock is in its usual position on the frame, but is wider and better textured than the original, which makes it better to manipulate as compared to the original. The left side only thumb safety is also slightly larger than the original thumb safety, but not overly large, and has enough material to push in either the safe or fire mode with the thumb easily. The plunger tube, as with the original 1911, is a staked unit that houses the slide lock and thumb safety plunger and spring. The left side only magazine release button is small, extended, unlike the original 1911, and is easily manipulated by the thumb of either the shooting or support hand. Surrounded by a standard 1911 trigger guard without an undercut, the trigger is a solid unit with what would be considered a medium pull unit. Trigger pull weight on this unit came in at a nice 2 pounds 13.2 ounces. Not bad at all for an out-of-the-box, plain Jane, government model 1911. Still new, the trigger exhibits the usual free travel before engagement with, by the way, a very slight amount of side play. Once engaged, the break is very crisp with no hint of trigger over travel. Rock Island Armory did things right with this trigger. With regard to the physical appearance of this specimen, it is typical GI with a parkerized flat finish, not unlike the original. However, if we look at the ejection port, you will find one that is lowered and flared, unlike the original. A nice touch from Rock Island Armory to this GI model, which helps to ensure smooth operation. That big hole in the barrel says 45 ACP. The guide rod is the standard GI short guide rod, but you might notice something different. A personal touch, if you will. I replaced the recoil spring plug with a custom unit that will focus a bad hombre's eye on the barrel. On a final note, this 1911 is built to the original M1911 standards, which means it was built to what has become to be known as the Series 70 build, which means that it is void of any mechanism that dictates the pistol won't fire unless the trigger is pulled all the way to the rear. Okay, with the features covered, let me turn my attention to maintenance. And, since my attention span is short, so will be the maintenance. Maintenance of a 1911 is well documented, and covering disassembly, cleaning, inspection, lubrication, reassembly, and function checking can be found in the user manual for the pistol. I will mention, however, that if you decide to replace the recoil or mainspring, Rock Island Armory website contains information regarding spring rates, a suggested spring source, and recoil spring sizing information that may interest you. I have provided a link to that information in the description section below the video. Now, let me get to the range and run a function and accuracy test of my own device. Standard 230 grain FMJ ammunition is on the menu today for checking function and accuracy. I am using a variety of magazines, including the one that came with the unit. I am hoping that any malfunction will be magazine related, which is not uncommon and should be expected, at least by me. So let me get to it and see how this RIA FS GI standard runs. As far as carrying a standard GI model of a 1911, I leave that up to you. Some folks would, most folks would not. Rather, most folks prefer to carry light and easy these days. If a folk does prefer a 1911, it would probably be one of the later and greater lightweight version of one. The 1911 still remains as one of the safest pistols to carry, and condition 1, cocked and locked, being the preferred method of doing so. With that said, there are many holsters available for carrying a 1911. One of my favorites, as I have complimented in past presentations, is the Falco A112 Hawk holster for IWB hip carry, in which I have carried quite a few 1911 pistols in all sorts of weather. As I do favor cross-draw carry these days, a Craft 4059 OWB cross-draw holster fills that need. For cold weather concealed carry, I do like the Falco rotor shoulder holster system. I have reviews on all of these holster systems and have placed links to them in the description section below this video. Now, it's time I turn my attention to my final thoughts. According to Rock Island Armory,
the M1911 GI Standard is a great representation of the original US GI Combat Issue 1911, is chambered in 45 ACP, and built with our exacting engineering standards. Fixed, low-profile sights and traditional smooth slim design are perfect for quick-pull holster use. A durable parkerized finish gives it a tough, smooth, non-reflective surface. Smooth wood grips offer comfort in both feel and design. The 5-inch barrel offers a balanced weight to assist with the accuracy and recoil that made the original 1911 design famous.
Although this pistol is an early version of the M1911-A1 FSP GI Standard FS, Rock Island Armory did a fine job with it. Would I carry it? Probably not. Like most other folks, I like light and easy these days, and have several light and easy 1911s with modern conveniences to choose. With that said, it always gives me pleasure to take a step backward at times and shoot a plain Jane 1911 at the range to make me appreciate what is available today. But if a plain Jane 1911 was destined to be my only firearm, history has told me I would not be underarmed. Well, as always, I appreciate you being with me for this chapter in the Range Ronin Chronicles, and I hope we meet again. Until we do, stay vigilant, stay armed, and stay safe wherever your travels take you.